What happens when the person you tried to forget suddenly walks back into your life years later, when everything has changed, yet your heart still remembers every detail? This is the story of two souls who met too early, drifted too far apart, and found each other again when it was almost too late. A love they thought was gone forever now quietly reignited after years apart. But can a second chance really heal what time once broke? Welcome to English Stories with Sherry. Grab a cozy seat and let's journey through magical tales, classic stories, and everyday adventures all in English. Learning the language has never been this fun. Life carried on. Emma married someone else, a man who was good to her, stable, predictable. Daniel eventually did the same. But the fire they once shared never truly went out. It simply went quiet, buried deep beneath the routines of adulthood. 15 years later, fate decided it wasn't finished with them yet. It started with an invitation. Emma received it on a Thursday morning, tucked inside her stack of work letters. A reunion. Her old university was hosting an alumni event, celebrating 20 years since graduation. She almost ignored it. Her life was busy, full of deadlines, meetings, and responsibilities. But something about the idea of going back, just for one night, made her pause. She told herself it would be harmless, a quick visit, a chance to see old friends, maybe share a drink or two and reminisce. She didn't expect to see him. She didn't even dare to imagine it. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Daniel. Older, yes, but unmistakably him. His dark hair was now flecked with gray, his jawline still strong, his smile still the same one that once made her forget to breathe. For a moment, everything around her disappeared. The noise, the lights, the crowd, all of it faded, leaving just the two of them locked in silent recognition. He saw her too. And in that instant, it was as if the 15 years between them had never happened. "Emma," he said softly, as he approached. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." Her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to say something casual, something light. But all that came out was a shaky laugh. "Neither did I." They spent the rest of the evening catching up. It started innocent enough, old memories, shared friends, funny stories from when they were young. But under the surface, there was something else, an unspoken current, pulling them closer with every glance, every smile, every pause. Daniel told her he now owned a small design firm. His wife had passed away 2 years earlier, and he'd been raising their daughter alone. Emma listened quietly, feeling a mix of sadness and warmth. She told him she'd divorced 3 years ago, after realizing her marriage had become more of an arrangement than a love story. They were both alone again, two people who'd lived entire lives apart, only to find themselves standing face to face once more. As the night went on, the crowd thinned out. The laughter turned to whispers, the music grew softer. And soon, it was just the two of them sitting by the old window, talking about everything and nothing at all. "I used to think about you," Daniel confessed, his eyes fixed on the night sky outside. "More than I probably should have." Emma smiled faintly. "I used to think about you too." He turned to her, and for the first time that night, their eyes met with the weight of everything they hadn't said. The years apart hadn't erased what they once felt, it had only matured it, deepened it. But now, things were different. They weren't young anymore. They carried scars, responsibilities, memories that couldn't be undone. When the night ended, Daniel offered to walk her back to her hotel. The air was cold, the streets quiet. They didn't talk much on the way, the silence between them said everything words couldn't. At the door, she turned to him and smiled. "It was good seeing you again." He nodded. "You too." For a second, neither of them moved. The moment hung heavy in the air, one more heartbeat, one more look. Then, he reached out and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Good night, Emma," he whispered. She watched him walk away until he disappeared into the night. That should have been the end of it. A momentary reunion, beautiful, bittersweet, and complete. But life rarely ends stories so neatly. A week later, Emma received a message. Coffee sometime? She hesitated. She knew she shouldn't. But she also knew she would. They met at a small CAF near the river neutral ground, casual, harmless. At least, that's what she told herself. But one coffee turned into two, and one afternoon turned into several. Before long, they were seeing each other regularly, sharing old jokes, trading stories about their lives, and laughing in ways neither of them had in years. It wasn't supposed to become more. They both knew that. But the heart doesn't follow rules. One rainy evening, after another long talk that neither of them wanted to end, Daniel finally said what they'd both been avoiding. Emma, I don't know what this is anymore, he admitted. But I can't stop thinking about you. She looked at him, her heart pounding. Daniel, this isn't right. We've both built lives. We can't just. I know, he interrupted. But what if this is our second chance? The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. A second chance, it sounded so tempting, so impossible. They sat there in silence, the rain tapping softly against the window. Finally, Emma whispered, I don't know if I can go through losing you again. He reached across the table and took her hand. Then don't. From that moment on, something shifted. They stopped pretending it was just friendship. They began to see each other more often, quietly, cautiously. There were dinners, late-night walks, and endless conversations that stretched into the early hours. They laughed, they remembered, and slowly, they began to feel alive again. But it wasn't without conflict. There were doubts, guilt, fear, the weight of what others might think. They were older now, and love wasn't as simple as it once was. Daniel worried about his daughter, about what people would say. Emma worried about her reputation, about starting over so late in life. And yet, every time they tried to pull away, life seemed to pull them back together. One night, they sat on the beach, the same one where they'd shared their first kiss all those years ago. The sea was calm, the sky full of stars. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd never lost touch? Emma asked softly. Daniel smiled. Every day. She sighed, watching the waves. Maybe we weren't ready then. Maybe we are now, he said. That night, under the quiet sky, they chose to stop running from the past. They chose to forgive themselves and each other for the lost years. Over the months that followed, they rebuilt something real. It wasn't perfect. They had arguments, fears, moments of doubt. But they also had laughter, warmth, and a connection that ran deeper than time. It wasn't the reckless love of youth, it was something steadier, more grounded. A love built not on fantasy, but on understanding. Emma once told him, I think we loved each other too early, and met again just in time. Daniel smiled and said, maybe that's what makes it forbidden, not because we shouldn't love, but because we were never supposed to get a second chance. As seasons changed, their story found its rhythm again. What began as a coincidence became a quiet certainty that sometimes, life does give us one more shot at the happiness we thought we'd lost. And though the world around them might not understand, they knew one truth, that love, when it's real, never truly disappears. It just waits patiently, quietly for the moment we're finally brave enough to find it again. Because some loves aren't meant to be forgotten. They're meant to be rediscovered. Thanks for listening to English Stories with Sherry. If you enjoyed today's tale, like, subscribe, and share with a friend learning English. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep learning, and keep listening.